Our quarantine crew feeders here, getting ready to feed the horses, and I am keeping my distance, giving them theirs. They are a family who comes out, so their being together like this is not an issue. Everybody's getting the grain ready and the medicines, and they will be loading up hay in the carts when they're finished with the buckets. They're going to come out today. It's a wet, rainy day, but horses need to be fed no matter what. And here we have Donkey watching and listening. He'll be calling to the feeders probably pretty soon. We have horses out in number 2. They know the feeders are here, and they are patiently waiting. This is Mike and Nancy Razutko and their son and daughter Tommy and Emma. There's quite a process to this. Everybody steps in and just takes care of what needs to be done. It's a simple process. Here's Miss Oreo. She's keeping an eye on things and looking for mice. Good girl. It doesn't take too long to prepare things. Once they get all the grain in the buckets, they'll be stacking them, bringing them out to the carts full of hay, and to keep things moving along. We have 2 different types of hay that the guys load up, so they look at the menu board and see what each individual paddock is supposed to get, and they load those carts up accordingly. Our menu board has all the horses listed, what grains they get, and how much hay and what type of hay. So we try to keep things as simple as possible for them, and it seems to work out well. Definitely is a group effort to take care of 18 horses here at Reins of Life.
Let me get Max's and then you can.
A busy crew. Here's Cowboy, Shadow, Pongo, and Bud, all patiently waiting for their breakfast this morning. The other horses in the other paddocks, can't see them past the trailer or past the other barn. That's Ron's maintenance barn. He has waited a long time for, and it's finally up and needs finishing inside, but coming right along. Just about ready to roll. Each group of feeders also takes manure forks out with them, and they check the sheds while they're out there and scoop out any manure from the sheds. So we keep those cleaned up so the flies don't congregate inside the sheds. The horses can stand comfortably out of inclement weather and the hot sun.
Oh. What did you get? One small plate?
Yeah, one small.
I'm surprised Biscuit hasn't jumped into one of them carts yet.
What?
I'm surprised Biscuit hasn't jumped into one of them carts yet. Oh, he is. That's him. Oh. Oh, there's Biscuit. He loves to ride in the carts, the sleds, whatever it is. He says, okay, let's go. There goes Biscuit. There goes Emma on their way out to take care of Max. And Miss Tessa's getting a little anxious over here.
All right, Chunky.
Tessa, Miss Tessa, stop that. And everybody's heading out. Everybody's going to get started. We'll take a look at Tessa and Donkey and Bandit here first. This is Miss Nancy. And these guys are ready and willing to be haltered. They each get tied to a spot on the shed. And Miss Tessa, she wears a grazing muzzle. She has a tendency to founder, and she has laminitis, and we have to be very careful about what she gets to eat and how much she eats. It affects her feet. This is Bandit. Bandit is looking at me and he says, there's my food, bring it on. And Donkey is patiently waiting at the corner. Miss Tessa is tied over here on this other end so that when they're in the next paddock for the ponies, they can see her, keep an eye on her. She has a tendency to put her foot in her bucket. So we take her muzzle off during feeding time so she can eat her grain. And before she's turned loose, she will have her muzzle back on. Ponies in number 5, moving around, getting anxious for their breakfast. We are going to move on to the next paddock. Here's Bandit, being a good boy. And Donkey standing patiently, just waiting for his turn. We're going to head out to the number 1 and 2 paddocks. And these are our most muddy paddocks. And here's Miss Oreo. She's keeping an eye on everybody. Miss Emma is down in number 3 down there, taking care of Mr. Max. He's on the other side of the barn there. And there she is over there, taking care of him. So back up here at 1 and 2, we have Mike and the son, Tommy, getting ready to halter horses up here. Number 2 paddock, we have Pongo and Bud. Bud is like a big puppy dog. He is so sweet, so gentle. And believe it or not, this guy right here bosses him around. The biggest guy in the place. Cowboy keeping his distance. He respects very much the pecking order in his paddock. So Mike's got the big guy. Pongo, I'm sure, will be next. You see how he follows Bud? That's his buddy. And we got Tommy over here. He's got bugs on his halter, tied in place. And moving on to the next horse. And looks like Ace. Gonna put that halter on Ace. And everybody gets tied to a spot in each shed. 2 horses to a shed, most generally. Sometimes we have to move them around a little bit. When it gets so muddy, they just need a different spot to stand in. Ace has decided to take the lead and show Tommy where he wants to be tied. And then we're back over here at number 2. And there's Pongo getting his halter on. And Mr. Shadow patiently waiting. Shadow is a Percheron quarter horse cross. He's a big guy, stout, not as big as Bud. And he is going to go and wait for them at his spot. It is pretty mucky out here this morning. Wouldn't take much to slip and fall just like it's ice. Sister Emma going in to give Tommy a hand. And Mocha. He's decided to come up here where he can see the cart, the food. And yeah. Mocha wants to lead the way. There is a pecking order in every paddock. Bugs and Mocha are the two top two bosses in this paddock, although this is Bugs' paddock and he will have the last say, but they do get along very well. There's Mocha and Duramax waiting for his chance. Duramax and Ace have become quite friendly almost from the first day they met. They just kind of took to each other. Once they get all the horses tied, they come back for the carts, take the cart in along with all their grain buckets. Everybody gets their own grain, their own bucket, and the hay gets put out while they're having their grain. Looks like Biscuit must have bailed somewhere along the line. There's Shadow getting anxious. He does a lot of head bobbing and pulling while he's waiting for his grain. Mr. Cowboy standing there getting anxious. They do. It's breakfast time. They're hungry. And Big Bud standing over there. Isn't he handsome? Look at him. Girls down in number 3, patiently waiting. Their turn will come soon. Buckets are being hung. Hay is going in. It's a gray morning, but at least we're not getting a downpour or a sprinkle even yet, so everything's good. Good morning, Liz. Good morning, everybody. Morning, Jamie, Jennifer, Sigafus. Up on the hill there is the Taylor's barn. Lloyd and Nancy Taylor donated this land to Reins of Life, and piece by piece pastures were set up, sheds were built, barn was built for the feed and the hay. Eventually, an indoor arena was built with stalls, and the place is just continues to get better with a brand new barn, maintenance barn for Ron that has recently gone up. It's a big barn. It needs to house tractors and all kinds of stuff, so it really needs to be big. There's our stall barn area, and on that end over here is the arena, a playground, little red shed that they used to put their tack in. They did not have the barns and tack room and stuff at that time. Now a little maintenance building. Horses are happily eating their grain. Once they finish, they'll release everybody, and they'll run right for their hay. All will be good. Happy horses. Piles of hay out for them. Won't take them long to find it. Tommy's gonna check the sheds, see what needs to be cleaned out, and we try to keep the sheds cleaned out every day. 2 sets of feeders, morning and evening. Every day we'll go out and check the sheds and see if they need to be picked out. And evidently the horses spent most of their time outside the sheds last night. Don't look like there's anything to do, and with all the groups of feeders taking care of it, usually there isn't very much, even if there is anything. Now just kind of waiting for these guys for the horses to finish their grain.
Did paddock 2 need this?
Yeah, the one where Bud is. I don't know about Shadows.
Bud.
And now heading down to number 3, where the girls are. We have 6 paddocks out here. These 3 up front. We have 2 out by the parking lot. And then we have this one here where Max is. He at the moment has an abscess in one foot, and having him on solid ground instead of the wet, muddy ground is better for his, not only better for his feet, but easier for him to walk on, and helps keep him from getting lame. And he has had his grain. He is now eating some hay, and a very happy little guy. Well, he's not little. He is a Tennessee walker, and he does have the walk, which is both legs on one side move forward at the same time, and at a trot, his trot is like that. Both legs on the same side move forward and back at the same time. where other horses, their feet, one front, one back.
Hey, Teckla.
Yeah. Oh. Oh, Biscuit's going after the pigeons. He's on the hunt. We're not fond of the pigeons out here. They tend to make a mess, and they want to nest in the horses' sheds, and their droppings come close to their pails. So we are attempting to put chicken wire up in those sheds to keep them from nesting in there. And there's Miss Jenny over there, the black and white. We have Miss Coco. She has a fly sheet on. It's not a blanket, it's a fly sheet. It's like a big screen, so it's airy for her, but it keeps the flies off of her. She is allergic to flies. She is allergic to a lot of natural things, and it's we have to be very, very careful what she is allowed to eat. If she gets a hold of corn, other things that she's allergic to, she, depending on how much she gets, she could go into anaphylactic shock. And this is not a good thing, of course, but we are very, very careful. And we also have Miss Havana in here. She is tied at the other end of this shed here where Coco is in. Cowboy is under his bucket. That silly guy. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. Maybe he's scratching his neck. Kind of looks like he's scratching his neck. Isn't it time for the horses to be turned loose? They just take their halters off, drop them in the bucket, and that way they all come back. Nothing is left at the shed. Yeah, I think it kind of looked like maybe he was scratching his neck.
Maybe. All about this.
Definitely a group effort to come out here and feed horses. And this family is wonderful. They come out here a couple of times a week, and right at the moment, because of the COVID-19 and all the social spacing and everything, we try to keep feeders out here who are family members or those who have been feeding together, and we try not to we do not bring new people in right now. We have to stay with the feeders that we have and not take a chance on bringing the virus in any kind of way. We have hand sanitizers, soap for washing. Every time a group of feeders is out here, we sanitize the room and everything they touch, including the carts. We spray the halters, the lead ropes. We wipe down everything, door handles, door edges of the doors, the sinks, the faucets, all the tubs, and everything they've had to touch in order to do this. We are very, very careful, and we need to take care of our people here too. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Bill. Girls are happily eating their grain. They'll be done in no time. Happy horses having their hay. And that would be Bud and Shadow. Oh, that would be Bud in a pile behind Pongo up front. There's Shadow in his own pile. And Cowboy has his own pile. We put enough piles of hay out so that the horses, they feel the necessity to move one out of a pile. They can just move on to another. So nobody goes hungry. Once they get all the buckets and stuff gathered, back into the carts they go, and those will all go back to the barn. Everything will be rinsed out, rehung on the on their hooks in the feed room, and the feeders very generously even sweep the feed room floor when they're done. So, heading back to the barn, a little ways here, and like I say, they'll be taking the stuff back in, cleaning it up, and putting it away. Nancy has gone back over now to check the sheds on the other side and make sure those are cleaned out. Horses all have automatic waterers. There's one down here at the bottom of this post with the little white sign on it. It's short. It has a paddle in it. The horses push that paddle with their nose. The water comes in. They drink, and when they release that paddle, it stops the water from coming in. They walk away, and the water drains back down through the drain. And this prevents freezing in the winter time, for one thing. It also gives them fresh water every time they drink. Hi, Debbie. Hi, Cy. Coco can eat. She can eat the hay. She gets a very special grain that doesn't have the corn and the molasses and stuff in it that the other horses get in some of their grains. She does get fed well. There is stuff she can have to eat. We just have to be very careful what she gets. Alright, buckets going back to the barn. We'll be getting those cleaned up. Once everybody is untied, everything will come back to the barn, cleaned up, put away, and feeders will go on their way for the day. I don't move very quickly on my ankle. I've had some surgeries probably about 10 years ago now, but it still bothers me, and so I have to be careful. Feeders check on each other, make sure they're all doing okay. Horses, yeah, no one's stuck in the mud. Horses can be crazy. You just never know what they might do, so it's always a concern to be out there around them. These guys, they have to be gentle horses. They can't be, they have to know how to behave. But when they are out amongst themselves, they are horses. Carts are brought in, lined back up by the hay, so they're not sitting in the middle of the barn. Ron's tractor now is in his new barn, but he used to sometimes have to drive right through here. So we have made a habit of keeping the middle of the aisle cleared. Another reason, when hay is brought in, we have to be able to let the trucks and trailers drive straight through the barn, so they come in one end and they go out the other end. And this is our hay barn. That was Ron's maintenance room back there, which still is for the moment until his new one is built inside his new barn. We keep everything in its place much as we possibly can, and it's a barn. It gets dirty, but you can still keep it cleaned up to some extent, so we always try to keep our barns cleaned up. Morning feeders also, when they're done with their feeding, they will load up the carts for the lunch feeder, who will come out around noontime. Horses don't get quite as much hay and stuff at lunchtime, and they don't get grain, so they don't have to be tied. But the morning feeders will load up the carts for lunchtime for the feeder. Buckets are now going back inside. They are checked. They're checked before they're hung up, and they're rinsed if they need to be. We do have a sign here that tells our feeders that this is what we expect of them to help keep everybody safe. I am keeping my distance from the feeders so that none of us are going to accidentally infect each other. So in here we have the sinks. This is where they rinse the buckets. This is our vet room. We call it a vet room. We keep all the things in here that horses might need for wounds, or the fly sprays for the summer, and all the stuff that we need to keep in our barn handy for the horses. So we have a system for everything in its place. And we just try to keep things neat as possible. So I'm going to step back outside this door here, let the feeders have the space of this room. And they have now put some of the buckets and halters back in place that they're finished with. We have a volunteer book that we asked them to sign, not that shows that they were here, although it does. Excuse me. But Reins of Life gets a benefit from the total hours that all of our volunteers put in at Reins of Life annually. So this is why we have a book. There are instructions everywhere for the feeders. They do pay attention to these instructions, and they are also our eyes and ears out here. If they find anything concerning, they will let us know so that we can check on it and take care of what's necessary. It looks like down in number 3, the horses have been turned loose. They should be coming back to the barn very soon with those buckets. They'll be rinsed out, hung up, everything back in place. And we can't thank them enough for just being here so dependably. Starting to sprinkle now. What timing? We have 18 horses here. All sizes, all breeds. We have quarter horses. Like I said, Shadow is a Percheron quarter horse mix. We have ponies. We have several quarter horses. Like I say, Max is a Tennessee Walker. We have all shapes, sizes, colors. We have the minis over here, Bandit and Donkey. They are our minis. Bandit is our PR horse. Bandit visits schools. He visits nursing homes, libraries. He does the traveling around and introduces people to what a horse can look like, smell like, feel like, and what it takes, be educated as to what it takes to take care of them. So back to the barn. I think the last cart just came back.
I was saying we need to get.
And things are being put back in place, and they're about ready to go on with their day.
Let's see how Cam goes.
So, all done.
All fed. Everybody's happy and fed. Bellies are full.
Yeah.
We're filling up.
Last buckets are going up, and they'll be moving on with their day. Guys, thank you so much. We depend so much on you. You're always here.
Happy to do it.
Happy to do
We love you. Thank
Thanks
you.
for following us around.
Thank you.
Every time.